मॉर्निंग एवरीवन। आई होप सभी ने ये 2 रिवेटिंग दिन बहुत ही एंजॉय किए। फॉर द नेक्स्ट सेशन आई लाइक टू इंट्रोड्यूस सत्यांशु सिंह। सत्यांशु, माय फ्रेंड, माय ब्रदर। सत्यांशु इज़ अ नेशनल अवार्ड विनिंग फिल्म मेकर। इन्होंने एक फिल्म बनाई है चिंटू का बर्थडे, जिसके लिए इन्हें नेशनल अवार्ड से सम्मानित किया गया था। ही इज़ ऑल्सो रिटन पोएम्स इन विक्रमादित्य मोटवाने's उड़ान. He is currently directing a series for Sony Live, and he works as a consultant and script mentor for producers and a lot of OTTs. इन सब के सिवा सत्यांशु has a teaching experience of 11 years. खूब ज्ञान जमा करता है, खूब ज्ञान बांटता है। All in all, शानदार आदमी है। सत्यांशु, please come on stage and steer the next session.
गुड मॉर्निंग। मितेश इतना प्यार करता है मुझसे कि चिंटू को बर्थडे को नेशनल अवार्ड दिलवा दिया। चिंटू को बर्थडे को नेशनल अवार्ड नहीं मिला है। उसके पहले मैंने कश्मीरी फिल्म बनाई थी, उसको नेशनल अवार्ड मिला है। बट थैंक यू मितेश, मितेश हैज़ बीन वंडरफुल। आई थिंक इट्स अ great honor to be here because 14 years ago when I came to Bombay to write films, make films, I was sitting somewhere in the audience and I knew no one. ऐसे डरा हुआ कोने में था। सूरज बढ़ जाता है कि पिताजी एक टी ब्रेक में चाय पीते दिख गए, तो मैं उनके पास जाके उनको बोल कर आ गया कि हम आपके कौन, मुझे बहुत पसंद है। उस समय अंजुम सर को देख कर डर लगता था। अभी तो बगल में भी बैठता हूँ तो ठीक ठाक ही फीलिंग आती है। तो इट्स बिन अ वेरी फ्रूटफुल जर्नी। जो टॉपिक आज हमारा है, अगेन दैट्स अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग टॉपिक। ये देख के आपको लग रहा होगा कि बहुत लड़ाई होने वाली है स्टेज पे। वो आप एक्सपेक्टेशन बना लो, ऐसा नहीं कि बनाओ आप एक्सपेक्टेशन, देखते हैं क्या होता है। बट मोस्टली आई एम एक्साइटेड बिकॉज द पैनल दैट वी हैव हियर is, I think, wonderful. I think I'm excited because I think I'll have a great time speaking with these fine writers and filmmakers. Let me introduce them to you and invite them on stage. सबसे पहले मैं जिनको बुलाने जा रहा हूँ, वो मैं जब बहुत बच्चा था और मुझे सिनेमा से कोई ज़्यादा जान पहचान भी नहीं थी, तब भी उन्होंने मेरा सीना चौड़ा कर दिया था, क्योंकि मैं मुंगेर से हूँ। उन्होंने मुंगेरी लाल के हसीन सपने बनाए। तो हम लोग, छोटा शहर है बिहार में, हम लोग बहुत ही, हमें लगने लगा कि हम बहुत कमाल हैं। ऑफ कोर्स वाइल ग्रोइंग अप उनकी फिल्में मुझे पसंद आने लग गई। ही स्टार्टेड विद फिल्म्स लाइक really critically acclaimed films like Damul and Parinati, and then went on to make films like Mrityudand and Abharan, Gangajal, Rajniti. Recently, hugely successful series called Ashram has been made by him. He has a career spanning 4 decades now. Writer, director, producer, also an actor. Prakash ji, please come on stage. I invite you on the stage. Mr. Prakash ji. The second panelist is Tushar Hiranandani. He has written films like Masti, Grand Masti, Double Dhamal, and a couple of films from the Houseful series. But he has also written one of my dad's favorite films. मेरी फिल्म से ज़्यादा उनको अतिथि तुम कब जाओगे पसंद है। He has also written, see the diversity of genres in his writing. He has also written ABCD and Street Dancer and Ek Villain and Dishum. And then recently he started directing. He made his directorial debut with Sand Ki Aankh. He is about to start a feature film featuring Rajkumar Rao. It's called Shrikant Bola. It's based on the life of Shrikant Bola. And he is also, and that is perhaps, it creates huge anticipation in us. He's directing season 2 of Scam. So Tushar, welcome. The third panelist is, again, I think, very, very, very valid voice for this stage, Karan Malhotra. He started his career as an AD. I'm mentioning the films that he has done as an AD because that in a way, gives us the context of today's session. As an AD, he worked on Pukar, Lakshya, Swades, Main Hoon Na, Jodha Akbar, and My Name is Khan, along with other films. And then he directed Agnipath, Brothers, and more recently, Shamshera. We recently spoke on phone. We have never met. Today is the first time we are meeting. But he has been very, really warm and wonderful, making sure that my nerves are cool. So thank you, Karan, and welcome. And our fourth panelist is someone, we have a lot of mutual friends between us. We have said hi and hello sometimes here and there, but we have never really had a chat. So this stage will be where Alankrita, Srivastava, and I will finally get some time to chat. Alankrita is an acclaimed, internationally acclaimed filmmaker. She's a screenwriter, she's a director. She has made films like Lipstick Under My Burqa, Turning 30, Dolly Kitty और वो चमकते सितारे. She has been in the writing and the directing team of Made in Heaven. She has written, directed, and created this show called Bombay Begums. So she's very clearly, she has a very obvious love and passion for stories centered around women. And that's why, again, a very, very relevant voice for today's session. Alankrita, welcome. Mai Khiladi to Anari, commercial versus independent cinema. ये इंडी वर्ड ऐसे ही बड़ा कंफ्यूजिंग लगता है मुझे तो. मैं जब IMDb मैंने नया डिस्कवर किया था तो मैंने उस पर एक हाइपरलिंक देखा, टॉप इंडी फिल्म्स. बहुत पहली बात मुझे लगा वो कह रहे हैं टॉप इंडियन फिल्म्स. तो मैंने उस पर क्लिक किया तो उसमें ऐसी फिल्मों के नाम थे जो मैं जानता तक नहीं था. Similarly, the term commercial again it's not easy to define. So can we start with trying to understand what you think, because I think it's important to set that context. What is commercial cinema? What is independent cinema according to you guys? And let's see where we reach. Alankrita?
I think, in an Indian context, it's kind of difficult to differentiate between the two because especially right now, we don't have a separate system of funding or a separate system of distribution for independent films. So I think now it's become, I think it kind of, how they're produced is, I think, perhaps similar in many ways. But I think, I would say for me, the difference is that an indie film may not be necessarily driven by a mainstream commercial actor. The treatment of that film might be not something that necessarily equals, sort of matches the tone of a commercial film. It might be telling a story from an alternative perspective. It might be also not just the perspective from where it's telling the story. The story itself might be something that which feels like it belongs to the periphery. So I think it's more about tone and treatment and who are you casting, budgets. It probably does not have a release guaranteed. So I think those are the kind of things that I feel, now I feel are sort of the characteristics of an indie film.
I think Alankrita has covered everything that we wanted to cover as far as indie films are concerned. By definition, indie films are films that are not backed by a studio. So the budgets and the release and all of this that doesn't have a guarantee that a studio-backed film would have. But indie films, we have started using the term indie films also for films which have an alternate sensibility, a strong thematic content, and even aesthetically it is different from mainstream commercial cinema. I also understand that it's almost unfair to label a filmmaker as commercial or independent, and I think we should not do that here. So instead of that, I would like to ask all of you, what are the kind of films that you want to make, irrespective of the definition?
Actually, I want to say something. When you say indie films, like you said, when you were a kid, you thought indie films are Hindi picture hai, ठीक है? I think times के साथ सब कुछ बदलते रहता है. मेरे लिए there's no indie film, there's no commercial film. एक अच्छी picture होती है, एक बुरी film होती है. Simple as that. अभी जो indie film का very soon, which is happening, and we are not realizing this, but the indie films are the films which are going to come on OTT. Those are going to be your indie films. जो थिएटर में आ रहे हैं वो कमर्शियल, जो आपके हिंदी पिक्चर है स्ट्रेट आउट, आपके जो इंडी फिल्म्स है आर गोइंग टू कम ऑन द ओटीटी. दैट्स गोइंग टू बी नाउ क्लियर डिफरेंशिएटिंग. दैट्स व्हाट इज हैपनिंग. द एक्चुअल फिल्म्स दैट लाइक यू सेड दैट यू वांट टू मेक एंड ओटीटी, यू कैन डू दैट. Not as you can take the risk and make it. Basically, indie films are films that you can cast anyone. That's what is the problem in India. Casting is the most important thing. We'll be lying if we say it's not. It is. So in an indie film, you can cast anybody and make a film, and that usually is going to come on OTT. That's what I feel it is.
So Tushar, taking a cue from that, Sand Ki Aankh, and the next film that you're making stars Rajkumar Rao, and it's based on a, you like to talk about that film and tell us whether you think it's a commercial film or an indie film?
I'm sure all films for us is very tough to make. As a director, first of all, to start a film is so tough, to cast it, then the budgets, and now especially we know what is happening around us. The budgets are literally cut. So it is not, every film is a different film journey. So I would not say Sand Ki Aankh is a commercial film or an indie film. It is a film that I wanted to make. I never tell myself, oh, this is an indie film or this is a commercial film. That's the story I want to say, so I make it. That's how simple it is.
Yeah, so that's why let's talk about how do you decide, Prakash ji, let's start with you. How do you decide what are the stories that you are passionate about? What are the stories that you want to tell? Irrespective of the definition, let's talk about you personally as a storyteller.
Thank you. It's very difficult to say what kind of stories or what are the stories you want to say. Because stories, I personally, I'm very interested in how things are happening the way they are happening. And if there is a pattern of stories emerging from various places, segments, people, countries, then over a period of time you begin to understand that there is an effect of some cause. And you try and understand that. And it begins to take shape of a story and you begin to relate with characters. And that's how the stories emerge in my vision. It's not necessarily from an idea. It's basically how the society moves the way it does, or any problem that we face. So it's from life, from today, from things which are happening around. Those are things which kind of motivate me into thinking about it. And over a period of time, sometimes it's years. Say, for example, right now I am very intrigued about why democracy all over the world is failing or has failed. So now there are so many stories emerging, whether it is Brexit or China or Russia or Argentina or India or Philippines or European countries, why suddenly majoritarianism has become, the mantra. Why? It's over the past 10 years, it's not a coincidence that it's being challenged, in one place. It's being challenged all over the world. And there is something fundamentally wrong with the practicing of democracy. Now, this interestingly has pushed me into searching stories, and I have found a story in a very small place in Bihar, which is reflective of this global change or this challenge that we are facing. And this is how, I have started writing it, and I am, going to make it next year. So this is, for me, it is, when you're talking about commercial cinema and indie cinema, clearly, when we were at the institute, we had a great teacher, and he was talking to us one day, said, "दो ही कारण होते हैं पिक्चर बनाने के। एक, जब पैसा बनाना हो तो पिक्चर बनाओ, और दूसरा, जब कोई बात कहनी हो तो पिक्चर बनाओ। तो जब आपको कोई कहानी कहनी है, कोई बात कहनी है, तो आप पैसे जुटाते हैं और आप जैसे तैसे वो फिल्म बनाते हैं। तो मेरे ख्याल से वो इंडी फिल्म है। और जब आपके पास पैसे होते हैं तो आप स्टार लाते हैं, आप किसी स्टोरी के राइट्स लाते हैं और आप एक प्रोजेक्ट बनाते हैं। उसके डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर पहले से खड़े रहते हैं, तो वो एक कमर्शियल जोन है। हम फिल्में बनाते हैं तो हमें पता नहीं रहता कि ये कैसे डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होगा, कहाँ डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होगा, हमने उसकी परवाह भी नहीं की। I was very fortunate that I was able to kind of make a switch where I literally was able to seduce stars into making them believe that they are going to do something good, something interesting. And those films, even now I'm learning the language of trying to communicate with the common, massy, commercial audience while I am able to say what I want to say. I'm still trying to do that. It's a process of learning which is going on. So I don't really know whether my films can be called commercial or indie. But then sometimes, you have movies like, Alankrita did Lipstick Under My Burqa, and it became a super hit. But we had huge problems trying to find a distributor when we had completed the film. It took us almost like 2 years, but when we made the film, we didn't think about how it will get distributed. We thought it will somehow. So this is what is the reality. You are driven by a desire to say something, to tell a story, and you say it somehow. Whether the studio backs it, or you borrow money, or you sell your house, however you do it. That's how it works.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Actually, you have given us just the right context. Instead of taking these two terms, if we talk about these two intents, it's a commercial business, we make money through films, and we want to tell something through our films. And most films will be a mix of both in some degree. I have separate questions for you about working with stars. I'll come to that, and to Alankrita on Lipstick Under My Burqa. But Karan, can we hear from you? How do you decide the story that you are trying to tell?
Yeah, I'll be very honest with you. I think I have a pretty childlike approach to that. I want to be excited in what I'm doing. I want to be engaged for a year and a half in what I'm doing. Uh, uh, if I have to make a confession, I'm not a filmmaker or a storyteller who is looking to say something through my film that might change the society or change the approach of people. I do feel the kind of films I enjoy watching are the films that are, you may call them escapist cinema, you may call them commercial cinema, you may call them entertaining cinema. They might have a subconscious messages sometimes, they might not. But to be very honest with you, what I realized very recently with the release of my last film is like I think every filmmaker who makes a film, you know, they give a part of the years that they would have otherwise lived happily somewhere in the mountains or maybe with their grandchildren and all. They give those years to making a particular film when they're doing that. And all of us work with that much intensity, chahe picture badi ho ya choti ho. But what I've landed at, for myself at least personally, is that the fate of a film is never in our control. We can always keep thinking, yaar, hum kamal banayenge aur chalni hai. There's a certain surety you get after you face success or you taste success. But what I've realized is that the only thing that is in our control is the process of filmmaking. And it is very important for me that I enjoy that, because that is the only thing I can control. And a director's job is to control. I think all of us are somewhere control freaks, and because it is our job to control things, control a world, create a world, and do all of that. But अगर आप कोई ऐसी कहानी चुन लेते हैं जो आपके दिल से ना आई हो या आपका दिल ना धड़का हो, even like a child, मतलब excitement, मतलब even if you're watching, my daughter's watching Peppa Pig, she's enjoying watching Peppa Pig, so she will watch that. If I'm enjoying watching Indiana Jones, I'm a huge Subhash Ghai film fans. I might not have a very intellectual answer to that, but the adrenaline rush, the songs, the masala of those films, really, I like to celebrate them. I enjoy it. And I feel as a filmmaker, I enjoy even creating that world. So that is my primary motive, believe me, to even try and pick a story. If I have fallen in love with the story and it does not make me sleep at nights, it makes me feel like I can offer much more to the story, I can do so much with the story, I will pick that story. And I, as Tushar rightly said, I agree with him. I have never understood the concept of, and more so in today's time, between an indie film or a commercial, I've never understood it. Because I think if Alankrita is picking up a subject, she's picking it up from her heart. So is Tushar, I'm sure, so is Prakash ji. All of us are working from that intention. आपका choice of subject depend करता है आपने किस किस्म की ज़िंदगी जी है, आपकी conditioning क्या रही है, आप कहाँ से आए हैं, आपने क्या क्या experience किया है. So I think it's a reflection of that at a level if I have to kind of make some sense out of it or intellectualize it. That's where I come from here.
Yeah, Karan, yeah, I think that's not only fair, I think it's admirable. I think it's important for us to speak honestly about what we believe in, because we take pride in our work. We work very hard, right? Yes. But I'll share with you a problem which, in fact, I would like all four of you to answer. मैंने एक कश्मीरी फिल्म बनाई, इसमें दो बच्चों की कहानी थी. काफ़ी पसंद की गई वो फिल्म, उससे मेरी लाइफ में बहुत चेंज आया. फिर मैंने चिंटू का बर्थडे बनाई, वो एक छोटे से बच्चे के बर्थडे की कहानी है. तो कई लोग जो मेरा हित चाहते हैं मुझे कह रहे हैं आप कुछ भी लिख, बच्चों की फिल्म तो मत लिख, क्योंकि तो टाइपकास्ट हो जाएगा. सो आप चारों से मैं पूछना चाहूँगा, क्या आपको कभी भी अपने करियर में ये डर रहा है कि आप टाइपकास्ट हो रहे हैं, और अगर रहा है तो आपने कैसे डील किया उससे?
तो मैं सच बोलता हूँ. Like I said, सब कुछ टाइम के साथ बदलते रहता है. I don't know about others, but I really feel that sort. So when you took films like I had written Masti, Grand Masti, Houseful, Dabal, I was writing those kind of films, and suddenly I saw a film, Vicky Donor, और मैं हिल गया. वो रात को मैं सो ही नहीं पाया, because I told my wife that ये comedy, the comedy that I am going to, what I am doing, though it's running very slowly, it will not run so much as these kind of films, which is the change that was coming. So मेरा यही है क्या, you have to change. There is timings, you have to change. Exactly with you. Now, next everyone comes and tells me, don't do any women-oriented. Similarly with her, she will be getting the same thing. So that's on your call. It's like he said, I also have exactly the way he chooses. So I have to, if I hear a story, I have to have a body reaction. Either I cry, or I laugh, or I jump, or I get excited. Then only I will do it. Otherwise, I won't do it.
Thank you. Alankrita, is it true? Do you think you are being typecast, or you have the fear of being typecast?
No, I don't have any fear of being typecast. I think I choose my stories very consciously. I don't think I've wanted to be a filmmaker just for the heck of making films. I think I wanted to always tell a certain kind of story. Something that I felt like I felt I had some perspective on, I had some insight on, something I wanted to bring to the table. So I think I've chosen this path, and so I know when people are like, "Oh, now everyone calls you this feminist filmmaker," I'm very proud of that. I think I'm happy that I'm able to tell the stories that I want to tell, and of course, it's always an uphill task in getting it together, getting it out, all of that. But I think. I mean, I don't have any complaints. I don't feel. I'm not so much. I'm not really thinking about how others are perceiving me. I'm too busy trying to figure out how to make my next film or my next show or tell my story. So I think I'm actually very comfortable. I don't really I'm absolutely fine with it, because I think it's not like, oh my God, suddenly I've woken up one day and said, this has happened to me. I feel it is a conscious thing. These are the stories that matter to me. This is what I want to engage with. I'm not interested in perpetuating the status quo. It bothers me. I feel everything that I do, I would want to challenge the status quo in my own way. And I do feel that, the mainstream sort of cinema does, it does continue a lot of tropes and traditions which I feel need to be challenged and questioned. And I do feel that, like filmmaking for me is not a passive act. It's not like, well, I'll just tell any story, I'll just do anything. I think that I want to think about everything that I'm writing, showing, filming, because everything has meaning. And I want to think through what I'm doing and do it consciously. So I think that's how I see my work. And therefore, I feel that I'm okay with everything that comes with it, the brickbats and like whatever, the struggles and all of that, because this is a very conscious choice.
Prakash ji, this question should not bother you much, because the diversity in your cinema is better than many filmmakers. But do you have felt that fear or that label कि आप इस किस्म की फिल्म बनाते हैं, आप इस किस्म के फिल्म मेकर हैं? क्या कभी आपको ऐसा लगा इन फिल्मों में?
To be very honest, there's the most general and obvious questions which I'm asked when I'm in any public place, whether it's airport or traveling somewhere, or someone meets me, fans or whatever it is, कि आप एक कॉमेडी बनाइए, आप कोई एक बहुत बढ़िया रोमांटिक फिल्म बनाइए, मतलब आप इसमें तो मास्टर हैं, पॉलिटिकल फिल्म में। मैं पॉलिटिकल फिल्म में भी अभी एक स्टूडेंट भी नहीं हूँ, और रोमांटिक फिल्म में तो जैसा दूसरे हैं वैसा ही हूँ। And I personally appreciate and like every kind of film, everything which is, whether it is horror or comedy or romantic or relationship, any story which is well told. Our challenge as filmmakers or screenplay writers is that we need to tell the story in the most engaging manner. वो कहानियां होनी से तो नहीं होती है, अनहोनी से होती हैं। तो उस अनहोनी को कैसे हम एंगेजिंग तरीके से कहें, वो किसी भी तरह की कहानी हो, वो पॉलिटिकल हो, सोशल हो, रोमांटिक हो। मैंने फिल्म देखी वेलकम, मैं हंसते हंसते पागल हो गया। कमाल की फिल्म थी, इट एंगेज्ड मी। So it's not a particular kind of cinema that you are afraid of. It's whether you are able to tell the story well. अब मैं democracy की कहानी कहने जा रहा हूँ, but it has to come from within us, like it has to engage a common audience. सभी, eventually सारी कहानियाँ नानी की कहानी होती है बच्चे को सुनाने वाली। अगर बच्चे को सुला दिया नानी की कहानी ने तो कमाल है, वरना you fail no matter what kind of kahanis you want to say. So the challenge is not getting typecast. हर्ज क्या है टाइपकास्ट होने में, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, हो जाए, लेकिन हर बार वो कहानी अच्छे से कह दे तो क्या प्रॉब्लम है?
Karan, do you agree कि typecast होने में कोई problem नहीं है, and do you have that fear of being typecast?
नहीं, बिल्कुल नहीं यार. I think it's okay. It's absolutely fine. In fact, I think the way the word is being used is थोड़ा bastardized हो गया कि यार typecast हो गए. I think it's representing your brand of filmmaking. It's just that. And होगा ये filmmaking, writing इतना कमाल का insecure job है कि आप बार बार देखेंगे कि यार मैं वो करूं जो मेरी स्ट्रेंथ है, जिसमें पहले मैं तो कन्विंस हो जाऊं. अगर आप ऐसी कोई चीज उठा लेंगे जो आपका ग्रेन ही नहीं है, आप उससे कन्विंस होने की खुद कोशिश करते जा रहे हैं, तो आप उसको, सॉरी यार मैं पंजाबी हूं तो कुछ निकल गया तो माफ कर देना, हाँ, आप उसको घंटा जस्टिफाई कर पाएंगे. तो आई थिंक टाइपकास्ट होने में कोई परहेज नहीं है, एज लॉन्ग एज आई डू फील के yes, there will be a certain kind of films that you will, stories that you will always be attracted to and pulled towards. जैसे प्रकाश जी ने कहा कि यार अगर I'm getting attracted to political stories, it's not a conscious effort कि मेरे को सुबह के यार मैं पॉलिटिक्स में पिक्चर बनाऊंगा, ऐसा नहीं है. आपका दिल आपको वहाँ लेके जा रहा है. सिर्फ मुझे वही लगता है कि आज मैं भी हूँ, मतलब I think my all 3 films that I've made have father issues. I have to get over that first. I have some major father issues going on with me. So पहले तो वो सॉल्व करना है, लेकिन अगली पिक्चर जो बनानी है उसमें कोशिश ये करनी है कि even if you're drawn to a similar story, a similar genre or all that, you have to upgrade as a filmmaker. That is the need of the hour. I do believe very strongly, and I want to share this with all of you all, including all of us. If we do not change with times, now when I say change with times does not mean you have to go for a rom-com today, because I've made only action films. You have to change with times as a filmmaker, evolve as an intellectual person. Otherwise today, that change is so quick that we will perish if we don't do that. It's what I very strongly believe. You can say the same stories, you can have the same intensity, but they have to be offered to the audiences in a much better way, in a much different way, because they have gotten used to, I think, far more superior writing and material. And thanks to the pandemic, our challenge has become even more, because I think the audiences have matured by 10 years. जो 2-2.5 साल में उन्होंने मटेरियल कंज्यूम किया है, वो 10 साल आगे चले गए, तो हमको तो और आगे जाना पड़ेगा उनको लेके. So that doesn't matter. I think being typecast is something that an outside person is putting a label on you. You are just trying to play to your strengths and play to your happiness as a filmmaker while you go through that process.
Actually, I want to say something. ये बहुत सही चीज़ बोल रहा है कि टाइपकास्ट. आप एक रेस्टोरेंट में जाते हो जो वहाँ लिखा होता है 1969, वो जो बटर चिकन बेच रहा है, अब वो 1969 से बटर चिकन वही बेच रहा है, आप रोज जाके खा रहे हो, वहाँ पे जाके पाव भाजी नहीं मांग सकते आप, right? You can't change suddenly that. So for that is a lot. We as makers are told to make every time new stuff. It's not possible. Humanly, it's not possible. You will be sticking to your grain. Like he will be, I will be, he will be. Everyone is going to stick to their grain. What interests you? We as individuals all different. So we are going to come out different anyways. So that's it. We can't change like that.
No, and sorry, I just want to say something. This is my personal experience. After I made Agnipath, then we made Brothers. Then I will not name the person, but my surroundings said, "यार एक काम करते कुछ different बना. Make a comedy. You're a funny person." अरे being funny in a room is different and making a funny film is very different. Enjoying a funny film is a very liberating experience. Making a funny film is a challenging experience. It's not easy. It's not everybody's cup of tea. तो मैंने क्या किया? Brothers के बाद मैंने एक funny film लिखी. And till today nobody has taken me seriously about it. कि नहीं यार, अरे कोई मरा ही नहीं पिक्चर में, किसी का बदला नहीं लिया पिक्चर में, कोई खून नहीं बहा पिक्चर में, बोला यार लगे रहो फिर. So it's that. It's about that, I think.
So this and Prakash ji mentioning welcome actually allows me to slightly let us look at each other as film buffs and not filmmakers for a bit. Huh? Can you? I'll start with you, Karan. It's like slightly rapid fire for you, but आप लोगों को थोड़ा time मिलेगा सोचने को. आ गया अभी कि is there a film that you really love और आपको लगता है ये मैंने बनाई होती काश तो बहुत अच्छा होता, but it's very different from the kind of films that you make. कोई एक दो फिल्म जो आपको लगता है कि यार ये काश मैंने बनाई होती.
नहीं, मेरे को ऐसा कभी नहीं लगता, क्योंकि अगर एक फिल्म अच्छी है तो वो बस अच्छी है, उसको छुओ मत. मुझे ऐसा कभी नहीं लगा और मैं बनाता तो कमाल कर देता. It's never happened to me. I have either liked a film or disliked a film.
And a film that you love to watch, बहुत प्यार है आपको उसको as film lover,
Yep.
आपको बहुत पसंद है, but it's very different from your style.
Absolutely, एक रुका हुआ फैसला. I love it. I love the film every time I see it.
So एक रुका हुआ फैसला
Yeah.
for Karan.
Yes.
Alankrita?
One film that I've loved, but is very different from something that I could make. It's a very tough question for me. Can I please pass? I need a moment to think.
अच्छा, तुषार?
I don't have one, I have two actually. Okay, so the first film. So my dad was a distributor, so nepotism है मेरे में. तो so मेरी पहली पिक्चर तो जैसे सर ने बोला जब पहली पिक्चर बनती थी तो डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर आके देखते थे. ऐसा नहीं, अभी तो खरीद लेते हैं स्टूडियोज वीडियो. तो पहले एक डायरेक्टर प्रोड्यूसर पिक्चर बनाता था और पिक्चर देखते थे. As so my father was a distributor, the first film I ever saw in my life was an experience, obviously as a kid when you see. So the first film that I ever saw in my life was Sir's film Hippe Pure. And the first film I directed, Sir acted in it. So it was a big thing for me. Hippe Pure was all-time favorite. Because football, I really love football. अभी दिख के मैं football बन चुका हूँ, but I used to captain Maharashtra. तो मैं Hippe Pure बचपन से लेके 10th तक मैं देखते गया. फिर उसके बाद, like I said, my second film was आनंद. जब भी मेरे को मालूम है बाबू मूसा आएगा ज़रूर, और जैसा बाबू मूसा आता है, you start crying. You know it's going to come, but you can't hold yourself back. So Anand is my all-time favorite.
So Anand and Hippe Pure are two films that Tushar loves. Prakash ji?
मैं again, like, I'm lost for kind of rapid fire वगैरह जो है ना, वो problem वाली चीज होती है. There are many films, and one film I always felt was, and I enjoyed every moment of it, a film called Newton. It was so well written, executed, acted, in every manner, and it held me, and I keep giving its example all the time. I mean, it's a wonderful film. The human part of it, the ideological part of it, the structural part of it, and the bigger cosmos that we are living in. It challenges almost everything, and it engaged me. For the recent films. Of course, the classics are always there, and the great films are there, but from our generation, the films that we have seen, and also love Lipstick, which eventually the way it shaped and the impact that it had. In fact, I didn't realize its impact when she was doing it, but it unfolded, it had that magic. It just happens, not you. Each one of us, we keep trying to do the best, and we keep trying to bring in all the element and try to tell the story. And, sometimes we succeed, sometimes it doesn't work. But when it works like magic. So, Newton.
ये जो सोशल मीडिया हैंडल कर रहे हैं, ये सोशल मीडिया फ्रेंडली कॉन्वर्सेशन हो रहा है. प्रकाश झा न्यूटन की तारीफ कर रहे हैं, तुषार आनंद की तारीफ कर रहे हैं, करण एक रुका हुआ फैसला की तारीफ कर रहे हैं. ये कर देना पोस्ट. अलंकृता, अब टाइम मिल गया आपको.
I think my two favorite films are Monsoon Wedding and Hazaro Khwaishein Aisi, which I've loved them both. Monsoon Wedding I really, really love because I feel it's such a universal story and yet it's such a local story. Like I keep going back to it. I've watched it many, many times, and it always feels like a very perfect and complete film to me. So that's really my idea of a perfect film. And I also love Hazaro because I feel like it is political, yet it's so personal. And I think the interplay of the personal and political, really the way it sort of pans out in their lives is something that has always moved me. So I think, if I had to think of two films that I've really loved.
Great,
They're
great.
these two.
Thank you, Alankrita. I was hoping आप 4 लोगों से पूछ रहा हूँ, कोई तो लगान बोलेगा, किसी ने लगान नहीं बोला तो थोड़ा मुझे दुख हुआ. But overall हम लोग यहाँ, मैं इसलिए चाहता था कि आप लोग इन फिल्मों के नाम लें, क्योंकि ये तो हम easily conclude कर सकते हैं कि हम चारों, आप चारों और इंडस्ट्री में इन जनरल जो प्रैक्टिसिंग फिल्म मेकर्स हैं, हम अच्छी मीनिंगफुल फिल्में भी पसंद करते हैं और हम कमर्शियल हिट भी पसंद करते हैं, पैसा भी कमाना चाहते हैं. लेकिन एक मैं थोड़ा और इसको ग्रिल करना चाहता हूँ. ये जो मैं खिलाड़ी तू अनाड़ी, ये टैगलाइन है, ये टैगलाइन ही कह रहा है कि झगड़ा है, कि या तो कमर्शियल फिल्म वाले इंडिपेंडेंट वालों को कहते हैं कि तुझे क्या पता, या इंडिपेंडेंट वाले कमर्शियल वालों को कहते हैं कि यार तुम लोग ना फालतू बातें कहते हो. तो मैं ये नहीं मानता.
नहीं, माफ करना, कहाँ पे झगड़ा है ये?
वही सवाल है सर.
नहीं मतलब कोई बताओ, जगह बताओ जहाँ झगड़ा हो रहा हो.
वही मेरा सवाल है कि क्या इंडस्ट्री में क्या
ये खामखा करा रहा है झगड़ा?
नहीं सर, मैं
पॉइंट भी कर रहा है, ये ऐसा है, ये ऐसा है.
कोई झगड़ा है ही नहीं.
मैंने
ऐसे पॉइंट करके
तूने पहले रैपिड फायर किया, अब तू शो का नाम चेंज करने वाला है.
बिल्कुल
ये प्रश्न ही बुनियाद है. मतलब इसको कोई झगड़ा है
आई
ही
थिंक
नहीं.
मुझे एक पिक्चर बनाना है जहाँ सर ने 2 चीज बोली. पिक्चर बनाए जाते हैं, एक बताने, एक आपको बनाना है और एक पैसे कमाना है. मुझे दोनों चाहिए. मुझे पिक्चर भी बनाना और पैसे भी कमाना.
बिल्कुल. देखिए, मैंने
तो मैंने करके बताया ना.
कर दिया.
मैंने स्टेज पर आने के पहले बोला है जमा सर को कि सर झगड़ा नहीं होने दूंगा मैं. तो वो बिल्कुल मैं नहीं चाह रहा हूँ. मैं एक्चुअली सर ये जानना चाह रहा हूँ कि हम लोग फिल्म इंडस्ट्री में लोगों के साथ उठते बैठते हैं, हमारे प्रोड्यूसर सर्कल्स में हम उठते बैठते हैं, स्टार्स के साथ उठते बैठते हैं, वो लोग डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स के साथ जान पहचान है, वो लोग जो सिनेमा को इनेबल कर सकते हैं, क्या उन लोगों के देखने के नज़रिए में कोई बाइफर्केशन है कि ये इस किस्म की फिल्म है, ये इस किस्म की फिल्म है, और क्या उसके कारण हम एज एन इंडस्ट्री किसी भी तरह के डिसएडवांटेज में हैं? दैट्स माय क्वेश्चन. आई वुड कंप्लीटली अग्री प्रकाश जी कि हम लोग ऐसा नहीं सोचते, मगर क्या
सत्यांशु, शरीर भी सत्य है, मस्तिष्क भी सत्य है और आत्मा भी सत्य है. और हमको सबका सुख चाहिए, और हमको सारे सुख चाहिए. कल कहीं बात हो रही थी, मैंने कहा कि वी हेट मनी टिल वी हैव इट. तब तक सारा समाजवाद और कम्युनिज्म और सब कुछ सूझता रहता है जब तक पैसा नहीं होता है. जैसे आ जाता है उसके बाद सारा कुछ बदल जाता है. तो हमारे शरीर के सुख जो है ना, वो भी जरूरी है. कल तक जो स्टार जो है वो ऑटो रिक्शा में देर सवेर जैसे तैसे शूटिंग को पहुंचता था और बड़ा अपने आप को खुशकिस्मत समझता था कि मुझे काम मिल रहा है. आज जब वो शूटिंग पे आता है तो उसके पीछे 9 वैन लगी रहती हैं एक एक्टर के पीछे. तो दोनों सही है.
बिल्कुल सही है.
इसलिए कोई, ये सब प्रोग्रेशन है, सब नजरिया है, और मेरे लिए भी सही है. मैं कोई परीक्षा बनाता हूं तो आदिल हुसैन के साथ बना लेता हूं. राजनीति बनाई तो बड़े बड़े एक्टर्स आए. अब कल एक्टर काम करें ना करें, आज हमारे पूरे हिंदी फिल्म इंडस्ट्री का, खास करके बम्बई में हिंदी फिल्म इंडस्ट्री का जो है वो पूरा नजरिया बदल गया है. द होल मैकेनिज्म हैज चेंज्ड. दैट कैन बी अनदर प्लेटफॉर्म टू डिस्कस दैट, बट दैट्स द होल पर्पस विथ विच films are made has completely changed. अब इसमें क्या कुछ निकल के आता है, but quite honestly speaking there is absolutely no rivalry or kind of demarcation भी ऐसा कुछ नहीं था हमारे यहाँ कभी भी कि ये इंडी फिल्म मेकर्स हैं, ये कमर्शियल फिल्म मेकर्स हैं. दोनों अपने अपनी जगह पे एग्जिस्ट करते हैं. आपको किस वजह से कहानी कहनी है, आपको कैसे कहानी कहनी है, आप उस हिसाब से अपना काम करते हो, एंड आई थिंक इट्स क्वाइट वैलिड.
थैंक यू सर. मैं ऑन रिकॉर्ड कहता हूँ, मैं इस इंडस्ट्री को बहुत पसंद करता हूँ. मेरे मन में जरा भी सिनिसिज्म नहीं है.
ये सवाल फिर भी पूछ के रहेगा.
फिर भी मैं ये जानना चाहूँ, क्योंकि अगर मैं ये नहीं सवाल कर रहा हूँ उसका मतलब ये है कि देयर इज एब्सोल्युटली नो प्रॉब्लम, देयर इज एब्सोल्युटली coexistence between both kinds of films. Commercial filmmakers respect the voice of independent cinema. Independent cinema filmmakers have absolute, like...
Can I interject?
Please do.
This is not true. And we are not living in this kind of utopia at all. I think, you know, the way I'm going to speak more, you know, from the perspective of, like, if you just look at the decades and decades of the existence of the film industry, it has been created by and been run mainly by upper caste men with privilege. I think that that is how all the systems have come into place, the funding, the distribution system, the mechanism, the centering of the male hero, like making the male hero the center of the universe, and a certain kind of male hero. And that has created for decades and decades a system where now if you want to make, I mean, things are still better in the last couple of years, but if you want to make a film which is from a different point of view, with an alternative perspective, which challenges some of these norms, it is considered, it's not commercial, it's not viable, but nobody's questioning why is it not commercial, because that kind of money has not gone into creating that universe where the audience values the male hero, where, you know, the amount of money that has gone into the budgets of these films, the marketing of these films, the creation of that kind of stardom, it puts everybody, the people who want to tell different stories, completely at a disadvantage. We have very few in the Hindi film industry, even if you see very few Dalit filmmakers as well. So I think that, you know, I think we can't live in this fool's paradise and, oh, everything's gung-ho. I don't think that is true. I think we really need to change, and we need to have many more diverse stories. And you need institutional change for that to happen, for there to be enough funding, and also for those films to get that kind of, you know, the amount of money that goes into promoting, say, a film with a star. So I think when decades and decades have gone into that, you cannot put a smaller film with an alternative perspective, or what we are referring to as an indie film, at the same, like, it's not a level playing field, and ticket prices are often the same. There are so many battles, like, you know, whether it's show timings, who are the people who have been deciding what kind of films get what kind of shows, who are the people who decide the prices of films. So I think there's a whole history that cannot be ignored, and I do feel that it's important for there to be space for all kinds of films and a serious diversity of voices, whether it is, you know, it is female voices, it is LGBTQI voices, it's Dalit voices. So I think we can't pretend that it's all been great and everything is hunky-dory and people are doling out like lots of money for anyone who wants to make an indie film. And like I said at the beginning, India is at a big disadvantage vis-a-vis the independent film industry, because we don't have, earlier still there was NFDC and all, we don't have any other alternative forms of funding. So you are going to go with your film, which is telling a very different kind of story, which someone else might find too dark or too whatever, etc. But you're going to the same studios because you need money from them. And obviously they will prefer whatever feels safer, etc. So there are no resources. You're fighting for the same resources. You're going to the same cinema halls. It's not like there's a separate set of cinema halls which are more open to films, you know, which may be slightly smaller or different. So I think that it's not a bed of roses or anything. And I think that there needs to be change. And that change, I think, will only come when we at least acknowledge that there is a need for change and a need for many more voices to be there. Like, even if you look at the percentage of women behind the camera, till a few years back, it was less than 7%. And we are 50% of the population. So I just feel that that real change will come when there's much more diversity behind the camera. Whose stories are being told? Who is deciding? Who are the gatekeepers? Who's putting what out there? So I don't think it exists in a vacuum, and I do think that this is just the beginning. I definitely think things are a little bit better now, but I think we have a long way to go, and I don't think that it's so cushy and all of that. It's very different, and what Prakashji said is absolutely right. When you know you have to jutao the funds to make a film is very different from when you know that it's all, you know, everything is sort of laid out. So I think I really don't, we are all screenwriters here, and I don't think that, you know, we should not acknowledge the growth that is required and the space that needs to be given to all kinds of voices.
Thank you, Alankrita. This was much needed in my opinion. In sentiment, I agree with you guys. I really do. I came to this city with a film in my hand. It took me 13 years to release that film. The budget of that film was 2 crores. उसमें से 5 साल मैं हटा देता हूँ कि लिखने में 5 साल लग गए उसको अच्छा करने में, तो भी 8 साल का सफर था. Many producers, big producers, read the script. They said they love it, and 2 करोड़ की फिल्म है, ये मैं मेंशन कर दूं. They said they love it. आप विनय पाठक को हटाकर इस स्टार को ले लो और मैं फिल्म प्रोड्यूस कर दूंगा. मेरा फिल्म एक बिहारी मिडिल क्लास कैरेक्टर है और विनय पाठक से मैं बात कर चुका हूँ, वो इसमें इन्वेस्टेड हैं, एक रिश्ता हमारा बन चुका है. वहाँ पर एज अ प्रोड्यूसर आप अगर स्क्रिप्ट को पसंद कर रहे हो और 2 करोड़ आपके लिए बहुत बड़ी, मैं उसको बिल्कुल एंटाइटलमेंट से नहीं कह रहा. मैं ये कह रहा हूँ कि मुझे लगता है कि अगर मैं स्क्रिप्ट भी नहीं पढ़ाता और मैं बोलता कि मेरे पास ये स्टार है और मेरे पास स्क्रिप्ट नहीं है, ये स्टार है, तो वही प्रोड्यूसर मुझे कहता कि चलो कब शुरू कर रहा हूँ. सो आई रियली फील दैट देयर इज सम प्रॉब्लम, ऑल्दो आई से दिस विदाउट एनी कंप्लेंट. I don't say this with any bitterness, but I think I would like to agree with Alankrita that we have to acknowledge that there is at least among the people who have decision-making ability, who have power and money, I would like to agree with Alankrita that there is some problem there. But moving forward, Karan and Tushar, मैं आप दोनों से सवाल पूछ रहा हूँ. और वो ये लेबल हम हटा चुके हैं. आप कमर्शियल फिल्म मेकर नहीं हैं. नहीं सर, बिल्कुल नहीं. वो आप लेबल देखिए. ये जो क्वेश्चन है, ये क्रिटिकल क्वेश्चन मैं कर रहा हूँ बिकॉज यहाँ पर मोस्ट पीपल हियर, मेनी पीपल हियर आर एस्पायरिंग राइटर्स. हम लोग यहाँ जो बोल रहे हैं वो घर लेके जाएंगे. एंड इनमें से कई हैं जो सही में बनाना चाहते हैं कमर्शियल सिनेमा, अच्छी कमर्शियल फिल्में बनाना चाहते हैं. सो मैं आप क्यों, मैं भी चाहता हूँ, मैं आऊँगा, वो मेरी इनसिक्योरिटी है, मैं आऊँगा उस पर. मैं आप दोनों जानना चाहता हूँ, व्हाट डू यू थिंक इज व्हेन थिंग्स गो रॉन्ग व्हाइल मेकिंग कमर्शियल फिल्म्स इन जनरल. आप अपनी फिल्म की भी नहीं बात करें, आप ऑब्जर्वेशन के बेसिस पर कहें. व्हेन वी ट्राई टू मेक अ कमर्शियल फिल्म, व्हेन वी ट्राई टू मेक अ फिल्म टू मेक मनी, वेयर डू वी गो रॉन्ग ब्रॉडली स्पीकिंग? प्लीज स्पीक विद अ क्रिटिकल आई ऑन वेयर वी राइटर्स आर गोइंग रॉन्ग so that we can go home with some lessons.
So I'll tell you one thing. When you say commercial, this, that, any filmmaker now who makes a film, what is the best? What do they want? They want people to see their film. अभी मैंने एक पिक्चर बनाई और घर पे देख लिया तो होम वीडियो हो गया वो तो. So the biggest scare that I always have, and she's right. Like when I had Sandkiya, I was pitched against Houseful. And I didn't have any theaters on the first day. My business was 2 lakh rupees. I had to fight with every theater because my father was a distributor. I called up every theater owner, every chain, PVR, this. I had to make calls. Give me one screen, give me one screen, give me one screen. That is the big problem, which I don't know how it's going to get solved, when it's going to get solved. But as makers, when you say commercial, and the whole point is that I don't feel there's anything commercial. It's what you write, how you want. Like I said, it's person to person. Sir is also made, like he said, he's made Rajniti. Now you can't call that a commercial film. But it's done well, it's done with actors. It's how you make it. Today, Alankrita, when she says, today the kind of film she has done, when she goes to an actor today, they will meet her. She knows that. They will give her the respect because she has done well.
Yeah, Tushar, we agree with that completely.
Yeah.
हम एक बार दूसरे लेंस से एक बार देखते हैं चीज़ों को कि जो कमर्शियल सिनेमा है उसमें भी 95% फिल्में फेल हो रही हैं, है ना?
अभी तो
100%. तो एज राइटर्स मैं चाहता हूं कि मैं एक फिल्म लिखूं जो सच में पूरा हिंदुस्तान देखे. और उसमें मैं कोई बड़ी बात नहीं कहना चाह रहा हूं, मैं लोगों को हंसाना चाह रहा हूं. माइंडलेस कॉमेडी.
हिमेश भाई का ट्रेलर देखा?
हाँ,
हिमेश भाई का ट्रेलर देखा? हंस लो.
सो एज राइटर्स अभी ये इसी क्वेश्चन का दूसरा जो मिरर इमेज है वो मैं प्रकाश जी और अलंकृता से पूछूंगा कि मीनिंगफुल सिनेमा कहने के चक्कर में, एक मैसेज कन्वे करने के चक्कर में हम क्या गलतियां कर रहे हैं?
तुम कंफ्यूज कर रहे हो सत्यांशु. कोई भी कहानी कहो, कहानी अगर ठीक से तुमने कह दी तो अपने आप में लोग उसको चाहते हैं देखना. और ये टाइम एंड अगेन प्रूव हुआ है. कमर्शियल फिल्में आप बनाते नहीं हैं, कमर्शियल फिल्में बन जाती हैं अगर उसको लोग देखते हैं. आप अगर ये सोच के चलेंगे कि मैं इसको बहुत बड़ा कॉमेडी बनाऊंगा, तो ठीक है, लेकिन आपको उसके लिए जो तंत्र लगाने चाहिए, जो उसके एक्सरसाइज करने चाहिए, जो उसको उसकी स्टोरी का गठन कहना चाहिए, जिस तरह से आप सीन क्रिएट करेंगे, जिस तरह से आप लेयर्स क्रिएट करेंगे, सबटेक्स्ट क्रिएट करेंगे, वो अगर आप सफल हुए तो आपकी फिल्म चलेगी, वरना नहीं चलेगी। क्योंकि फिल्म का चलना लोगों के देखने पे है। इतनी बार हुआ है कि फिल्में, छोटी सी फिल्में रिलीज हुई हैं, धीरे धीरे लोगों ने बात करना शुरू किया है वर्ड ऑफ माउथ से। अभी हाल में ही कंतारा फिल्म आई है, वो रिलीज मामूली सी रिलीज हुई, बहुत हल्की रिलीज हुई। हमारे यहाँ मेरा भी सिनेमा है, 4 शो से रिलीज हुई, आज वो 17 शो चल रही है। तो वो ग्रोथ जो है, क्योंकि लोगों को अच्छी लगी। So you don't start from the point कि मुझे एक कमर्शियल फिल्म बनानी। You have to start as a writer. You have to start. We have to tell a good story. We have to tell a story which is liked by everybody. How do I engage the audience? How do I use the same scene? तो same होता, वही होता है। उस scene को कहना कैसे? जब हम कहते हैं भाई I love you, तो ये बात होती है। लेकिन ऑडियंस को समझ में आए कि ये लव यू कह रहा है, लेकिन इसकी जान ले लेगा, तो दूसरी बात होती है। तो एज अ राइटर, आवर चैलेंज इज टू बी एबल टू क्रिएट दिस लेयर्स, टू बी एबल टू क्रिएट दिस डायमेंशंस, टू बी एबल टू क्रिएट दिस ड्रामा इन एवरी सेंटेंस, एवरी सीन, एवरी स्ट्रक्चर। So that's, the understanding of the human psyche, the social psyche, the subject, the view, the point of view, all those things, you have to put everything in to be able to make a good film, and for that you have to tell your story well. चीजें तो कमर्शियल बनी जाए, उसमें थोड़ी होता है कि इंडी है कि कमर्शियल है। जो चल गया वो कमर्शियल है, जो लोगों ने देखा वो कमर्शियल है। नहीं तो बहुत बड़ी बड़ी कमर्शियल फिल्में बनती हैं, आज देख लो क्या उसका हाल है।
So, sir, this is very useful that we should not start as writers, we should not start with that agenda कि ये लिख के 200 करोड़ कमाने हैं. We cannot start with that. We have to start with a solid understanding of drama, dramaturgy, and back it with a deep, meaningful understanding of relationships, about subtext, about context, about settings.
Yes, sorry, I just want to say something. बाप रे, कौन है राइटर जो सोचता है 200 करोड़ कमाने लिखने से पहले? What a terrifying thought that is, यार. What pressure that is. But I have to say one thing, what I have experienced now. Sorry, if I may ask, how many aspiring writers are here right now? Fantastic, yaar. God bless you all. Jaldi karo. हाँ. What I have realized now is, and maybe it's just a generational gap from the time maybe I started eating and all that. Everybody today is in some kind of a hurry. Your first sentence that you commented on, that is what I felt right now. मतलब वो जो होता है ना कि यार पहली पिक्चर लिख दो और कमाल कर जाओ और 200 करोड़ कर जाओ. Everybody, and especially the newer generation that has come in, is in some kind of a hurry to prove a point. Because there is so much work. Because everybody, and it's very difficult to find writers today, let me tell you that. I think all of us struggle to find writers, assistants. There was a time when, like the companies that I have been associated with, whether it was Dharma Production, whether it's YRF, assistant आते थे, ये भी नहीं पूछते थे कि भाई पगार कितनी मिलेगी. आज assistant बोलता है कि आप इतना दे रहे हो तो ठीक है, वरना रहने दो. So that selective attitude has definitely come in, and I say it has both gray, a black and white to it, but people are in a hurry. They are not willing to spend the time that is required to nurture themselves to become what they want to become. They are in a hurry because यार मेरा जो रूममेट है ना उसको तो मिल गया शो लिखने के लिए, या मेरा एक जो दूसरा दोस्त है वो राइटर्स रूम में बैठा हुआ है, यार क्या कर रहा है बेचारा, कुछ नहीं, वो एडिट कर रहा होगा इंग्लिश बैठ के. लेकिन that pressure, that self-created pressure that all these writers take today, all the younger writers take today, is going to drive them crazy. Believe me, I've met so many guys who I feel have great potential but are in a hurry, and they miss that whole process of nurturing themselves to become their best version. And that is something that I'm really requesting all of you all. I understand, देखिए struggles होती हैं, सबकी होती हैं, किसी की कम होती हैं, किसी की ज़्यादा होती हैं, लेकिन हर किसी का एक level of struggle है, सबको दिया जा रहा है. ये मत सोचिएगा कि कोई भी यहाँ बैठा है is coming from a background of privilege, कि यार इसको तो सब रेडीमेड मिल गया. ऐसा नहीं है. सबने अपने लेवल की स्ट्रगल की है. कुछ होंगे जो जल्दी पहुंचेंगे, कुछ होंगे जो शायद कंसेप्चुअली थोड़ा लेट पहुंचेंगे, लेकिन सब टाइम पे हैं एक्चुअली. जिस टाइम पे पहुंचना था उसी टाइम पे पहुंचेंगे, तो प्लीज उस पे मेहनत कीजिएगा. Having said that, one thing I definitely want to say that I have experienced that we have to let go, as Alankrita said, let's talk about commercial, because I'm assuming with this whole discussion that what is successful is tagged as commercial today. ठीक है ना? तो because वो धंधा ज़्यादा कर रहा है. What has happened with us is, and I am a commercial filmmaker in that sense, although मेरी last चली नहीं, फिर भी मैं अपने को commercial बोल लूँगा. कहने का मतलब ये है, there is a sense of convenience that comes in when you are making a big film and when that film does well. Success is very good for your ego, but I feel it's also a very scary, how do I say, it's a devil that's going to sit on your back now. And we have to be conscious of the fact how to get rid of that devil and not listen to it when it whispers in your ears. Because when success happens, you suddenly start thinking you are an authority of your craft, your command over the audiences, of what people perceive your films to be, or where they should land. That is something that has to be unlearned. And a matter of convenience. Now because हम जो discussion कर रहे हैं कि यार creative है लेकिन पैसा नहीं मिलता, छोटी picture है पैसा नहीं मिलता. They're two different things. जैसे एक creative आदमी producer बनता है, या एक independent producer है, या बड़े studio का producer है, उसका agenda creativity नहीं रहता. उसका agenda ये है कि भाई मेरे को धंधा करना है. तो आप अगर विनय पाठक देंगे तो मेरा तो धंधा ही नहीं होने वाला. मुझे कहानी बहुत अच्छी लगी लेकिन इसमें 15 करोड़ कैसे कमाऊं? मैं तो 3 पे रुक जाऊंगा.
वो जेन्युइन है. देखो क्या है, आप इतने सारे राइटर्स हो, एक चीज है, आप देखो इस वक्त जिनके पास पैसा है, जो स्टूडियोज हैं या इंडिविजुअल्स हैं या कॉरपोरेट्स हैं या ओटीटी चैनल भी लगा रहे हैं प्रोडक्शन में पैसा, टेलीविजन भी लगा रहा है प्रोडक्शन में पैसा. आज म्यूजिक कंपनियां जो कल उनकी रॉयल्टीज इतनी उनके पास आ रही हैं, वो टी सीरीज के पास में, टिप्स के पास में, वीनस के पास में, वो भी प्रोडक्शन में पैसा लगा रहे हैं. तो जो पैसा लगा रहे हैं, जिनके पास पैसा है, जिनको घुमाना है पैसा, वो क्या चाहेंगे? वो चाहेंगे प्रोजेक्ट बनाना. तो स्क्रिप्ट जो है वो सबसे आखिर रिक्वायरमेंट है. ये हम सबकी विडंबना है कि उनका है. एक्टर ले लो, एक्टर कैसे आता है? एक्टर सोचता है यार मैं 30 दिन में, 40 दिन में, कितने दिन में मैं काम करके निकल जाऊं. वहीं से शुरू होता है वो. जो बड़े एक्टर्स हैं उन सब लोगों ने अपनी इंडस्ट्री बना ली है कि एक प्रोजेक्ट में से कितना पैसा लेकर के उनको निकलना है. बाकी सब उनके लिए काम कर रहे हैं. ये सिस्टम हो गया है. तो ऑब्वियसली उनको राइटिंग के लिए जब 2 महीने 4 महीने तक कोई सब्जेक्ट नहीं आता है, तो यार रीमेक उठा लाओ, एडेप्टेशन कर लो, बायोपिक बना लो. आप ध्यान से देखना कि पिछले 5 वर्षों में कितनी ओरिजिनल बड़ी कमर्शियल फिल्में बनी है ओरिजिनल राइटिंग की. बहुत कम. दे आर ऑल रीमेक्स, दे आर ऑल राइट्स उठा के ले. अब तो खैर राइट लाते हैं, साथ में डायरेक्टर भी ले आते हैं वहीं से. रीराइट करने के लिए, डायलॉग के लिए यहां से किसी को ले लेते हैं. ओरिजिनल राइटिंग की कहानियां बहुत कम बन रही हैं. और अनफॉर्चुनेटली जो हम लोग हैं, इंडिपेंडेंटली फिल्म बनाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, हमारे पास जरिया नहीं है. क्योंकि ओटीटी का पैसा, टाइम एंड अगेन मैं ही एक फिल्म बनाता हूं जिसके लिए ओटीटी खड़ा रहता है मेरे दरवाजे पे, और मैं ही दूसरी फिल्म बनाता हूं जिसके लिए मैं भागता रहता हूं. ओटीटी नहीं उठाता है पिक्चरें, फ्री में देना पड़ता है उनको. पर हमारा शौक है, जुनून है, हम अपना करते हैं. प्योर सिनेमा है तो है. इसलिए ये चैलेंज हमेशा रहेगा, क्योंकि आप कहानी लिखोगे, आप स्क्रिप्ट लिखोगे ओरिजिनल, और कोई बनाने वाला नहीं होगा, कोई पैसा लगाने वाला नहीं होगा. जो एक समय था जब मैं मृत्युदंड बनाया करता था, उस वक्त डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सिस्टम था, डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर पैसे दे देता था, पहले पैसे दे देता था. माधुरी दीक्षित को साइन कर लिया, पैसे आपको मिल गए. तो मैं यहाँ वहाँ से कहीं जा करके सूटकेस में कैश उठा के लाता था, डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर देते थे, ब्याज अपना पहले काट लेते थे. और जैसे तैसे मैंने फिल्म बनाई। आज तो वो भी खत्म हो गया क्योंकि सारे डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर मर गए, सारा कॉर्पोरेटाइजेशन हो गया, सारे मल्टीप्लेक्स आने की वजह से दैट होल सिस्टम इज गॉन। नाउ दे हैव अ पर्टिकुलर अमाउंट ऑफ टर्नओवर टू डू। उनके फंडर्स हैं, उनका टर्नओवर करना है, उस टर्नओवर करने के लिए दे डोंट वांट टू टेक एनी रिस्क। So it's a genuine problem. It's not them who are not giving the money. It's their system which is not permitting them to invest. So we have to keep at it. We have to somehow keep on making our films successful by originally writing, somehow making them, putting them up there. Because as Alankrita says, there is no level playing field.
Sir, I would like to take off from this. We need to make original films, and I think all of us need to do that. One of the themes of these 3 days is that we have traditionally had एक unique storytelling का तरीका हमारी फिल्मों में रहा है। मैं हर गणपति पे, जब ये गणपति का गाना इनके फिल्म का प्ले होता है हर सड़क पे, हर गली में, तो मुझे लगता है कि इस गाने से जुड़े जो लिरिसिस्ट हैं, म्यूजिक डायरेक्टर हैं, ये भी तो अपने घर के फ्लैट से इनको आवाज़ आती होगी नीचे से। मतलब आप जब अच्छे गाने बनाते हो, ये हमारे इस सिनेमा में रहा है, आप वो कल्चर का हिस्सा बन जाता है, वो हमारे त्योहार का हिस्सा बन जाता है वो। तो वी हैव हैड अ वेरी यूनिक फॉर्म ऑफ स्टोरी टेलिंग। हाँ, what do you have, what perspective do you guys have with respect to that? Because इतना rapidly change हो रहा है। पहले genres fuse होते थे, एक ही फिल्म में म्यूजिकल भी है, उसी में कॉमेडी भी हो रहा है, उसी में एक्शन भी है। वो आजकल जॉनरा फिल्म्स बनने लग गए हैं। पहले लिपसिंग सॉन्ग्स होते थे, अब लिपसिंग सॉन्ग्स का सिलसिला कम हो रहा है। हाउ डू यू सी दिस चेंज एंड डू यू थिंक दैट वी आर लूजिंग दिस यूनिक पावर दैट आवर हिंदी फिल्म इंडस्ट्री हैड?
I don't think we're losing any power. It's evolution. It's evolution. आप बंदर से इंसान बने. It's evolution. It will happen at every stage. Today, if I want to make Agnipath again, I will have to make it differently. I can't offer the simple linear way of storytelling that it offered. Because मेरा ये मानना है कि हमारे पास कहानियाँ इतनी ही हैं, उनको प्रेजेंट करने का तरीका क्या होगा, उनको लिखने का तरीका क्या होगा, उनकी लैंडिंग क्या होगी, उनका टेक ऑफ क्या होगा, we have to keep evolving with that. So we are not losing anything. मतलब आज शमशेरा में 6 गाने थे, किसी को नहीं अच्छे लगे, जिसको अच्छे लगे वो कहता है यार क्या लक्ष्मीकांत पैरेलल टाइप के गाने हैं, वो गाने आज कोई सुनता ही नहीं है। सो टुडे शमशेरा लिखी गई थी 2016 में, 17 में। अगर उसको मैं आज लिखता विद द एक्सपोजर दैट आई हैव गॉट पोस्ट पैंडेमिक, मैं शायद उसको डिफरेंटली ही प्रेजेंट करता, उसको मैं बहुत अलग नजरिए से देखता। तो जमाना बदल रहा है एंड फॉर द बेटर बदल रहा है। अगर हम ये कहेंगे हम लूज कर रहे हैं, वो हमारी इनसिक्योरिटी, क्योंकि हमको बदलने में तकलीफ हो रही है। इवॉल्व होना पड़ेगा, उसका कोई ऑप्शन नहीं है इन एनी स्टेज। मतलब हम जब एज राइटर्स बात करते हैं, हम एज एडिटर्स, मुझे पता है यार जब स्टीमबैक होता था, स्टीमबैक से जब एविड आया था, तो सीनियर एडिटर्स they literally perished because they were so terrified of evolving and adapting to a new software. It is as simple as that. You will have to evolve if you want to be there. You cannot be a purist and sit in your house and say नहीं भाई मैं तो यही करूँगा। करो और खुद ही देखो फिर भाई, और कुछ नहीं होने वाला।
तो आप ये कह रहे हैं कि अभी जैसे अग्निपथ में एक बहुत खूबसूरत गाना है, अभी मुझ में कहीं, वो गाना जब सोनू निगम की आवाज़ में हम लोगों ने सुना तो हमने कहा कि क्या बात है यार, कि मतलब इतना खूबसूरत गाना आज भी हिंदी फिल्मों में है। तो आपको नहीं लगता कि अगर वो कम हो रहा है या वो खो रहा है तो वो एज अ हेरिटेज फॉर आवर इंडस्ट्री वो एक नुकसान है?
यार वो कम नहीं हो रहा है, वो खो भी नहीं रहा है, इज व्हाट आई एम कमिंग एट। हर फिल्म मेकर को एज ए सेड इवॉल्व करना पड़ेगा, लेकिन उसकी कुछ क्वर्क्स होंगे जो वो रिटेन करेगा अपनी सेटिस्फैक्शन के लिए, चाहे अनफॉर्चुनेटली वो ऑडियंस को अच्छा लगे या ना लगे। क्योंकि इवेंचुअली आई थिंक एवरी फिल्म मेकर स्टार्ट्स टू मेक अ फिल्म फॉर हिमसेल्फ और हरसेल्फ फर्स्ट। क्योंकि अगर खुद को ही नहीं मजा आ रहा तो दूसरे को क्या दिखाएगा। लेकिन आप अगर सेम इमोशन स्टर करना चाह रहे हैं, आपको आज का तरीका ढूंढना पड़ेगा वो स्टर करने के लिए। You can have the same impact, the same emotion, the same intensity, but in a uniquer way. It doesn't have to be the same way. It doesn't have to be that. That is what is going to transform us into better filmmakers every time we try and cross 2 years, 3 years, 4 years in the industry, hopefully. वो आपको करना ही है, and I think that's a given.
तुषार, आपको क्या लगता है इसके बारे में? Because ये बहुत ही एक नॉस्टैल्जिया और बहुत कुछ जुड़ा हुआ है इस सवाल से।
यार मैं तो एक्चुअली अभी आई एम वर्किंग सिंस ऑलमोस्ट 30 years. Please.
यार पता है ये जो ना मेरे हिसाब से बहुत बड़ी मिसअंडरस्टैंडिंग है कि नॉस्टैल्जिया एंड सक्सेस गो हैंड इन हैंड. ऐसा नहीं है. Nostalgia is very different. Today you might talk about a film that you might have loved 15 years ago. And there are so many films that we talk about. दोस्तों के साथ बैठे हैं, जाने भी तो यार हो गया, अंगूर हो गई, एक रुका हुआ फैसला मेरे लिए हो गई, और बहुत पिक्चरें ऐसी हैं कि बातें करते रहते हैं. लेकिन आज जब आप कभी-कभी उन फिल्मों को रिविजिट करेंगे ना, आप शायद पूरी फिल्म में बैठ ही नहीं पाएंगे. Because nostalgia था वो. Sorry यार, continue.
Same thing. I was going to say the same thing. मेरे लिए भी, like I said, Anand. And that day, every maker to their own, I heard is getting remake. And I thought, ये क्यों हो रहा है? Like Sir said. So मुझे लगता है क्या यार, really writers sitting over here, they have the power today. A story is what we really need. Writers is what this industry really needs. Because forget anything, like when you had a problem, I sold my soul. Sorry. मेरी पिक्चर जब निकली थी सांड किया, everyone said क्या older ladies should have played it. Same, I had the same problem. मेरी पिक्चर में शबाना आजमी और डिम्पल का पड़े थी और उन्होंने मेरे को बोला 2 करोड़ में पिक्चर बनाना. At 2 करोड़ में कभी नहीं बनती. Then I went to every industry की heroine. No one said yes to me. In the end, these 2 ladies said yes to me. I made the film. So I sold my soul because I had to make my film at the end of the day. But मेरे लिए यही है आज क्या यार, today writing, because I knew I had a great story. At the end of the day, I knew that this film has to be told. जब मैंने देखा था इन दोनों ladies को screen पे, मैं रोने लग गया था. So I wanted to tell the story. Similarly, the next film I'm making is about a blind man. It doesn't fit your commercial sense, but I know I'm making the biggest commercial film. So it's in your hands how to make it, and your way to say the stories. That's what you should do.
Alankrita, what do you think?
About this unique, no.
So I would like to add another question. कमर्शियल सिनेमा में तो डेफिनेटली हम लोगों ने एक अलग पहचान बनाई हुई है. हिंदी फिल्मों का एक पूरी दुनिया की फिल्मों के कंपैरिजन में एक अलग अप्रोच रहा है स्टोरी टेलिंग का, विच हैज़ बीन वेरी सक्सेसफुल एंड एंटरटेनिंग. बट व्हेन इट कम्स टू सो कॉल्ड मीनिंगफुल सिनेमा, इंडिपेंडेंट सिनेमा, अल्टरनेटिव सिनेमा, वहाँ पर डू यू थिंक देयर इज समथिंग यूनिकली इंडियन टू इट which is different from, say, European cinema, which handles a subject like that?
Yeah, I definitely think there is something unique to our own cultural traditions, and I totally agree with Karan. One has to sort of evolve. I mean, one thing I want to speak about, which I think as a writer has always bothered me, that because we always had this intermission, and it's a curse, but you know, so I think the biggest growth for me as a writer was when I decided that, like one of the big things when I decided that I am never going to write for an intermission. So I remember the first film I wrote, Turning 30, I wrote with an intermission in mind. Ki this is going to happen, this is going to be intermission. And like I feel like it's just a small example, but I feel like there is growth in realizing that maybe there are some things that are done traditionally and you don't need to follow you know, that same sort of route. And now when I think about films becoming shorter, they release on, you know, they release digitally and all of that, that intermission which was earlier, that physical intermission for popcorn and all, doesn't exist in the same way. So I think there is always scope for sort of change, and one should definitely retain, I think, whatever one is attached to as a filmmaker, you know, how you want to use music, you know, how we use color. I think that is something that is very different, you know, for films across the world and Indian films. I think because when you go outside into an Indian city, it's full of color, it's full of noise. So I feel like to tell that kind of story, even if you're telling a story which is maybe a little more realistic, you know, it's nice to represent that sort of thing of color and sound and all of that. So I think everyone has to find their own resonance with what sort of works. I don't think there's any formula, but definitely I think we are not living in the 70s anymore, so we cannot make like those. And also I want to say that everything was not amazing about those films. There was a lot of, like, for instance, which in fact once I had spoken to Anjum about it, you know, the idea of using rape as a tool for titillation, where, you know, it was literally there for people. It was like an item in the film. The idea of, so I feel like all those kind of things, it's important to grow and grow past that. So it's not like everything that was in the past was super amazing and now, you know, we are losing something. It's not that. I think we have to keep like questioning, reflecting, and being conscious of what we are doing. So I honestly feel like I don't feel some sort of great nostalgia. I think what you enjoy, what you feel resonates with your kind of storytelling, what you feel will tell the story better, what will enrich your story. And also you can use the same tropes, but you can just use them in a different manner. So I think that is growth, and that is sort of how we all need to evolve.
I just want to say something because now they're all right evolving. So I have a certain, all of us have a certain amount of certain friends which are not from the film industry. So like I said, like you said, I'm making Scam, and I'm making a film called Shrikant Bola. So whenever I tell people I'm doing Scam, and they will ask me, Acha, now who's it about? It is about Abdul Telgi. When I say I'm making Shrikant Bola, they will say, who's the actor? Okay, there's a small difference, but there's a big difference in that. In OTT, they want to know the subject. In movies, they want to know the actor. Now, I don't know how to explain this to people. They will never ask me, actually, Shrikant Bola is about a visually impaired entrepreneur. And and like you also just said, oh, he's an entrepreneur. I said, no, he's visually impaired. So you're more interested in Rajkumar than, so I don't know how to bridge this gap. I don't know, I'm getting this all across all my life, so since 1 year now. So I don't know what to do about that. So there is a difference for OTT, and there is, you say thinking, that's why I said OTT is going to become the indie. For you, the so-called thinking and the movies are still remaining the same, actors.
Prakash, the same question for you, because you have been making films for 4 decades now. How the style of making films has
इतना
changed?
बनाया यार तुम भी तो देखो क्या है, एक छोटा सा एग्जाम्पल है, टेकिंग फ्रॉम अलंकृता व्हाट शी जस्ट सेड. मैं हैरान रह जाता हूं कि हमारा किस तरह का जनरेशन है जहां की लोग एक रेप करते हैं, उसका वीडियो बनाते हैं और उसको सोशल मीडिया पे डालते हैं. और ये कोई इक्का दुक्का नहीं, ये रोज कितने सारे इंसिडेंट इस तरह के होते हैं. तो इज देयर अ सेंस ऑफ काइंड ऑफ लाइक कि ऐसी चीज को भी पॉपुलराइज करने का सेंस है. What are the kind of things, social acts, physical acts, personal acts that we are celebrating today? Our population. So you have to understand the very deep-rooted reason for this. Late 1980s, 90s, the entire world, and especially India, because of the open market economy, because of the drive of a kind of education, now you have 2 generations which has been completely separated, devoid from studying humanities. आज कोई बच्चा 12वीं के बाद में इतिहास नहीं पढ़ता, समाजशास्त्र नहीं पढ़ता, भूगोल नहीं पढ़ता, प्योर साइंस नहीं पढ़ता, प्योर लैंग्वेज नहीं पढ़ता, लिटरेचर नहीं पढ़ता, किसी तरह की फिलॉसफी नहीं पढ़ता, किसी तरह की ह्यूमैनिटीज़ की पढ़ाई नहीं करता. वो या तो इंजीनियर बनता है या मैनेजर बनता है
या मास मीडिया करता है.
So this whole generation, 2 generations, they do not have any connection, any knowledge, any affiliation to our, the so-called rooted, nostalgic. So obviously, forms of expression, forms of enjoyment, forms of engagement have changed. Symbols have changed. You also have to realize in the past 10 years, the mass population, which is now drunk with data, thanks to Jio, 399 rupees, you get 1 GB free every day. So in smaller towns, in mid-towns, half the day of the young people is spent in somehow trying to charge the batteries of their mobiles, and the rest of the half कि कहीं टीले पे चले जाए जहाँ कनेक्शन अच्छा मिले और नेटवर्क मिले तो वो देख लें. और सोशल मीडिया पे पोस्ट कर दें वो चीज़ें. So this entire population, you also have to see that in the last 10 years, there has not been a single student movement. किसी तरह की हड़ताल, किसी तरह को फीस को लेकर के या पढ़ाई को लेकर के या किसी चीज को लेकर के किसी तरह का कोई आंदोलन नहीं हुआ. So on social level, this is a new generation. This is a different generation. It has its own challenges. It's drunk with a different kind of thing. तो आप वो अग्निपथ का वो गाना और वो सेंसिबिलिटी वाला गाना जो है वो हम लोग एंजॉय कर रहे हैं. शायद वो कुछ दूसरा चाहते हैं.
सर, टिकटॉक ने एक सर्वे किया था 3-4 महीने पहले कि व्हाट इज द अटेंशन स्पैन ऑफ देयर एवरेज कस्टमर. इट इज 5 seconds.
एब्सोल्युटली राइट. उसी पे बता रहा हूं आपको कि
एंड दैट इज द जनरेशन वी आर गोइंग टू केटर टू.
तो ये जो परिवर्तन है, ये परिवर्तन इट्स नॉट इन क्रिएशन, इट्स ऑल्सो इन कंजम्पशन.
यस.
कि कंज्यूम क्या हो रहा है, किस तरह के लोगों को हम चीजें दे रहे हैं, किस तरह की कहानियां उनको दें, उस पर भी कंजम्पशन हो रहा है. आई मीन एट द कॉस्ट ऑफ बीइंग काइंड ऑफ लाइक panned out, I will say that it's also our audience, in a way I feel that they are very generous, they are very kind sometimes, कि बहुत थोड़ी छोटी सी भी चीज़ मिल जाती है उनको फिल्मों के अंदर में तो वो अपना प्यार बरसा देते हैं और पैसे खाली करके उनको देखने चले आते हैं. बट एज अ स्क्रीन प्ले राइटर, एज अ फिल्म मेकर, व्हेन आई सी अ फिल्म लाइक RRR, I don't know what to make out of it. I honestly don't know. But then, it's a huge success. Film like KGF, huge success. So you have to gauze कि हम किस जनरेशन को पैदा कर चुके हैं. और ये सिर्फ यही नहीं है. अगर हम अपने बच्चे को पूछें, मतलब तुमने नॉवल पढ़े हैं, तुमने किताब पढ़े हैं, ये वोरेशियस रीडर है, ये 2 दिन में एक किताब खत्म कर दी थी. आज पूछो किस बच्चों से कोई पढ़ता है? Nobody reads. Nobody is aware. हम कंटिन्यूअसली महाभारत से रेफरेंस लेके आते हैं. कितने बच्चे आज पढ़े हैं महाभारत? So it's a different set of people, audience, young generation, which we are catering to. We cannot look at them from the prism of our sensibilities or our references or our knowledge. We have to evolve because there is no other way. We have to kind of like, try and do. I mean, मैं अपने सिस्टम में अपने दिमाग से अपने रेफरेंसेस पे विश्वास करता रह जाऊंगा और उसको ब्लेम करता रहूं, उससे कोई फायदा नहीं है.
आपने कभी किसी यंगस्टर के साथ, आज की जनरेशन के, अंताक्षरी खेली है? हाँ, आपको पता चल जाएगा क्या हो रहा है. क्योंकि हम जब माँ से गाते हैं ना, तो हम गाते हैं माँ मेरी माँ से मिला दे मुझे, और वो कोई और ही गाना गा रहे थे जो आपने कभी शायद सुना ही नहीं. आज का होगा, चल रहा होगा, आपने सुना ही नहीं होगा भाई.
एलोन मस्क भी जो है वो लिखता है कमरिया.
तो
this is, let's consider that this is the truth. अब इसमें आप कैसे चीजें, इसी में आप कैसे चीजें निकाल के लाएंगे, इवॉल्व कैसे करेंगे? आपको तो कहानियां ऐसी ही लिखनी है. क्यों केटर किसको करेंगे? यही आपके सामने है लोग. तुषार,
I think one of the scariest thing now, I think हम लोग बोलते हैं evolution. I think सबसे पहले as makers we should stop making promos. पहले तो पिक्चरें रिव्यू होती थी. 1 लाख अभी हम जब प्रोमो निकालते 3 महीने पहले, ऐसे फाड़ देते कपड़े, सब एक्टर्स के, सब स्टोरी के, सब रिव्यूज बन जाते. देश में इतने रिव्यूज हैं आज की तारीख में, और वो वीडियोस वायरल होके जब तक पिक्चर थक के आ जाता ना थिएटर में, कोई आता ही नहीं इसकी वजह से. आई थिंक इट्स सो स्कैरी दैट पीपल फर्स्ट यूज्ड टू रिव्यू फिल्म्स. नाउ एवरीवन स्टार्टेड रिव्यूइंग प्रोमोज हियर. इट्स बिकम सच अ स्कैरी फाइट. मतलब आज सबसे बड़ी पिक्चर निकल रही है, अरे VFX कितना खराब है, ये क्या खराब है, वो क्या खराब. एंड people are so scared to make films now, big films. Now suddenly it's become so scary. So it's become right. He's saying the 399, this phone has just killed us.
मैं तो जब से एलन मस्क ने लिया है ट्विटर, तो मैं भगवान ये पागल के हाथ में चला गया, कैसे ये ट्विटर को बंद करवा दे।
I agree. I agree. I agree.
कि कुछ कर दे, इसका काम हो, ट्विटर बंद हो जाए. I really am hoping, because I stopped using it 2 years ago. You know, it's scary. I mean, this on another platform we're also working on something. The entire generation of this country, like the young generation of this country, entire गांव से लेकर के छोटे कस्बे से लेकर के एक मोबाइल के पीछे जान दे देते हैं, मोबाइल के पीछे जान ले लेते हैं, और कैसे डेटा भरते हैं उसमें, मतलब रोज उनको फ्री मिल जाता है और कैसे उसको चार्ज करते हैं, आधे दिन काम करते हैं और आधे दिन किसी टीले पे बैठे अपना लगे हुए हैं. That this whole country, and politically they are quite happy. Protest करने वाले लोग नहीं हैं.
So, I'm sure all these observations about the audience and the need for change is very valid. In a way, I'm relieved because मेरी फिल्म में भी कोई गाना नहीं था, मैं अगली फिल्म लेकर उसमें भी मुझे कोई गाना डाल नहीं पा रहा हूँ, तो जब ऐसी बात होती है तो मुझे लगता है यार मैं कुछ गलत कर रहा हूँ क्या, वैसा. So that's quite relieving. One final question, Alankrita, आपके लिए. ये जो observation हमने किया about limited attention span, about lack of perspectives, humanities नहीं पढ़ रहे लोग, और writers should still read, right? So parting word ये ना हो कि ऐसे time बदल रहा है and we need to cater to them, doesn't mean that we lose that touch with education, with reality, with humanities. It will be great if Alankrita, who finishes a book in 2 days, can tell us about that.
I think I want to say two things. One is that I'm not entirely in agreement that everything with this new generation is like, I think it's just a sign of us being older. I've interacted with a lot of young people, and I have to say many of them are quite sensible and very sensitive. Maybe they don't read so much, but I think like at least the ones that I've interacted with, I think they think very deeply about many things. And sometimes you're very surprised by, I'm very surprised by their perspective and how they see the world. I also feel it's not like there haven't been any student protests. There were some protests in Jamia and JNU. FDII. So I think...
I was talking about the protest in Gujarat which led to end of emergency.
That big student movement.
So that I'm talking in terms of mass scale protest. I mean, there are, of course, protests which are, but in terms of really, obviously there are, sections of our society which is because of the parents, because of the involvement, they are aware, they are very engaged, and they definitely are kind of like, you like interacting with them, and you get in sort of like educated. I was talking about the
I know
mass
that big
scale,
one like JP
the
led
small
kind
towns,
of movement.
the small towns, the kasbas, you just go there and see, and the
I'm
kind of
definitely talking about more like city educated kind of students, but I feel that they are thinking, and there's a reason that they like watching certain kind of things. They're quite conscious, if you talk, like, I think the ideas about even young girls I talk to, they're not going to take it if somebody just calls them fat. They are very clear about things like body shaming. They know their boundaries. They're quite clearly able to express if they feel somebody has not spoken to them the way they should be spoken to, about setting boundaries, whether it's awareness about mental health. So I actually feel it's this newer generation, and of course I'm saying that I'm talking more about like college students. I find them actually very aware and quite mature in many ways, and I feel that they're choosing very wisely. I've spoken to them even about what kind of stuff they like watching. They don't connect with a lot of mainstream stuff because they watch many more international series and things like that. I feel that they are more engaged watching that. So I would say that, the thing is that with every kind of generation, when technology changes, I think it is, one feels like, oh my God, what has happened, when television came and then the internet came, etc. So I think that, social media is one more such sort of aspect, and I would look at the younger generation with respect, because I think that they're thinking about many more things, they're conscious about many more things. And definitely I feel, there's no, like you said about writers reading, I think it's really important. I don't know, I don't personally know any writer who doesn't read. I don't know how that works, but I think it's like some people maybe watch a lot. I don't watch so many things. Some people, I think for them, it could be watching stuff. For some people, it might really be some other forms of expression that they might really, feel like they're very connected with art or with like theater or something. So I don't think it's necessarily one kind of thing, but definitely one needs some sort of something going, like absorbing and learning through some, and reflecting through some form of art, I would say, whether it's literature or it's poetry or it's films or it's music or something. So I definitely feel like you need something. It can't, but I wouldn't say that it's only reading. I think I love reading, but I can't prescribe it to everybody necessarily. So yeah, so that's what I want to say.
Great. I'm glad that we have reached this note, because this note is a note of optimism, that the new generation will actually show us the way to, it's actually a fact that someone sitting here in this room might very soon write something which will make us a lot of money and which will also be quite meaningful.
तो एक सवाल आपके लिए है कि महाभारत इंडी काव्य है या कमर्शियल है?
ये सीजन 1 का क्लिफ हैंगर है. इस सवाल का जवाब सीजन 2 में मिलेगा. Thank you so much for being here. It was great chatting with you. And as I go back to writing my film that again features 2 kids as protagonists, I hope we continue to make the films we believe in and we continue to entertain the people. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Request you just wait for a second. Thank you, Alankrita, Karan. Thank you, Tushar. Thank you, Prakash ji, for leading us with that question. I'd like to call upon Anjum Bhai to come on stage and conclude that session, please.
Thank you very much, Nitesh. And I must say, Satyanshu, very interestingly moderated session, because it also became like a jigsaw puzzle of how gradually you allowed your panelists to state their piece, and because of their connections, it sort of began to be pieced together. And I'm happy that you allowed that. That's a very stimulating way for the audience to be able to glean not just the insights that these very experienced people offered, but also the questions which they raised. And what we do go back with from this conference, I hope, are at least well-articulated questions. And this session clearly reflected that. Each one of them, starting with Mr. Jha, who's the most experienced one here, about more than 40 years of filmmaking and storytelling, still says that yes, there is constantly, with every single thought that comes to him, every single idea that comes to with him, presents a monumental challenge of how is it that I formulate it in such a way that I'm able to communicate, not just express what I'm saying, but also be able to communicate and connect with that. And I think all his extensive travels within Bihar and within at least the northern cow belt continues to keep him connected with that. And it just makes it more difficult for him. The more he knows, the more difficult it is. Tushar was, of course, as usual, very candid. So thank you very much for that, about saying कि भैया ये इतनी problems आ रहे हैं, people are reviewing trailers and one feels so scared to come out with something, because even before they see it, it seems to be dissected and dissected and attacked. Karan, thanks for the clarity, pal. Okay, very clear, very articulate, very well formulated, and certainly very valid points. Again, about the struggle, that it's not that anybody is privileged. When you take on a creative process, well, thank you very much. It's always going to be a challenge. And Alankrita, what can I say? As usual, always the strong voice, the clear voice. Okay, and I'm glad that it came as a counterpoint. when it did here, that yes, it is more difficult for you, I imagine, much as everybody faces a challenge, but yet the kind of disturbing subjects and questions that you want to raise in your stories is going to make it difficult. Prakash, to a certain extent, has managed to straddle that by using the form of a larger popular expression and inserting, making sure that it's based on that. I mean, at least whenever we have worked together, that has always been our aim, that we use the popular form to convey something that we believe in. फिर वो हुआ जो हुआ, लेकिन कोशिश यही थी. Yours is thing that you're also challenging the form by itself, and therefore that makes it that much more difficult. And God bless you, Alankrita. Just keep on at it. I mean, your cinema is going to also show us the way. So thanks very much, Satyanshu.